Well, we've got to start, haven't we, with Line of Duty?
We have, really.
Yeah.
Really.
A brilliant... we didn't talk about episode 5 last week because it aired after we'd recorded, so... but I think we should just plough on in...
Well, I think we can
say about episode 5 is
yeah.
that Lindsay Denton sadly perished at the end. The most interesting thing is that we called that ending the week before.
I'm still debating whether that was me or a collective, but I will accept collective. I will accept the collective.
If you go back, I went back and listened to it.
Okay, good research here, good.
And I said, what if Lindsay Denton finds out that he's the caddy?
Yeah.
And then you said, and then he kills her. So it was a.
Okay. Well, so we agreed Luke had nothing to do with it.
No.
Fine,
no.
That's good. Yeah.
It was just me and you.
That's fine.
And he said something like, "Oh, I would hate that," or.
Yeah. Well. We'll find out his feelings when he returns.
It was so good, and that she got that text message to Ted Hastings about...
that was solved very quickly. One of the key things from episode 5 was who did she send the text to, and they resolved that pretty early on in episode 6, that it went to the head of AC-12.
Oh no, it said that on the screen.
Oh, did it? Oh, I didn't spot that. I didn't
Oh.
spot that. I just saw that she sent the text. I didn't spot who it went to.
Vicky McClure, the Kate character, when she went to say, I want to investigate fellow Agent 12 officers, and you thought, oh, it's going to be Steve because, there's this suspicion. But instead, you knew in your heart of hearts that it was Dot that she was looking into, and she wasn't sure about... No, I think everyone was a bit iffy about Ted Hastings, but they sorted that out pretty quickly, didn't they?
Yeah. This episode was done in an hour and a half. They did a 90-minute special. And even then, I felt like I could have watched another 90 minutes and not been too bothered by it.
It's amazing how gripping the show is.
Yeah.
When almost like half of that was in the same interview room.
Yes, there were 2 big interviews, one by the 3 AC-12 officers against D.S. Arnett, and then the 2 D.S. Fleming and Hastings interviewing Doc Cotton. And it was interesting that the action sequences came right at the end of the episode, the last 15 minutes.
Well, at the beginning, I suppose at the beginning and at the end, the rest Steve by Dot after, he set him up for...
And there's no way, as a first episode, that would have worked. But what you got, really, was just the good... Jed's writing is I really want to reveal everything to you, and the use of the way that they do evidence in these investigations, the way in which they show you everything is very, very clever.
Category in your packs, you will see.
Yeah, and that is how I'm sure investigations like that are run.
Showing.
But it means we see everything. There's no surprises at the end that we don't know about. There's no unexplained. So Jed must have to write very methodically to do that.
Well, we should say, shouldn't we, that there is an interview with Jed on thecustardtv.com at the moment.
Yes.
Talking about the series and everything like that.
And there was news released today that Series 4 will start filming in August this year.
Well, we knew that Series 4 was going to follow hot on the heels because it was announced at the same time as Series 3.
That's right, but...
I thought... Yeah, I had a feeling that this would end on a cliffhanger with Doc getting... And when Doc got away the first time in that car, you thought, oh, that's the end of it.
I actually thought maybe because you saw a guy in a helmet, I wondered whether he would get away, but then Vicky McClure shot him. I thought maybe the next series would be who was the man who was saving him, what was the people around him.
Well, that's what it is, isn't it? Who's this network? How far does it go up and stuff like that?
And I suppose we should say, after sort of say there was an hour and a half, there was after about an hour of deep interview and lots of explanation and everything, it really just kicked off when Dot had half written a text, and in the interview, as it was starting to slowly go against him, he just pressed send, and then one of the armed guards turned, shot the other, and got him out of there.
And Kate must have been knackered.
Well, she said she was, wasn't she? So...
Yeah. But then she said, oh, I'm knackered, and then they started up again, and she was jumping around, getting on bridges, shooting off bridges.
Yeah.
But I loved everything about this. It was perfectly paced, and I think one of the sort of unsung heroes is Adrian Dunbar.
Yeah.
Because Ted Hastings could be just like the normal boss character, but he's so he's such an honourable man.
Yeah.
And
I think that's what this whole episode shows you, that at the end of the day, the honourable man will win out. He was tempted by the police crime commissioner. He was, you know, he can't deny it.
The beautifully named Jill Bigelow.
Indeed. And he had his, you know, he bought into the D.I. Cotton's, you know, rubbish. You know, he bought into that, you know, and he even put him up for the commendation. And I think that's why he went after him so aggressively, because he himself had believed it all, you know, and he started to believe it all against Diaz Arnett. So I think that's why he did it.
And what do you think of the way? And I know they've ended both series like this before. The way they sort of end it with like.
Well, I did remember that they'd ended the series like that before, and I quite like it because it's got an almost kind of documentary type feel to it. You know, that's how a lot of good documentaries end. You know, I remember Making a Murderer ends with kind of like where all those people are now. They've after finished recording the show. So, and the O.J. Simpson one ended like that as well, you know, with a kind of a catch-up. So I quite like that.
And I almost feel like that it's the Line of Duty at its heart is almost like a love story between Steve and Kate.
Yes.
They always sort of go back to that relationship.
Yeah. I didn't need to see her win a commendation medal, but it was an okay, you know, sort of epilogue. You know, a nice turnaround that, you know, actually the good person won it, not him. I mean, there was also a point where it looked very much like he might get away with it in the interviews, because he was pretty much batting back everything, wasn't he? He was.
And it was something that he said to her, wasn't it, that got him?
Well, that's right. He let his guard down, and when he said, "You've been in my house," that was the key moment. I think he realised that once that the investigation had turned on him, and he was actually you know, he knew there were things in his house that were incriminating. What's interesting is, you know, we still don't know for sure who he was texting saying, "I'm done," and, you know, "It's done," and so am I. We assume it was to do with the child pornography ring. Not pornography, sorry, the child investigation ring that they sprung, but we don't know that.
Do you think as well, there was a big thing made about the picture of Jimmy Savile?
Oh, yes, that was the key thing in episode 5, wasn't it? The fact that when they were investigating the police chief from years ago, they showed a picture of him next to...
Fairbank.
That's it, Patrick Fairbank. They showed a picture of him with Jimmy Savile, and do you know what? I think well done, BBC. It wasn't on the screen for very long, and they never named him. They said a certain, you know, a celebrity, and the guy said, you know...
They mentioned Newtree as well, didn't they?
They did. And I think that just adds a very good air of realism to what's going on. You know, it's not burying our head in the sand.
All the stuff with the child sex abuse and stuff, that was handled so well. Yeah. And researched well. And it never felt like they were...
It never felt tawdry. It never felt like they were using it to be shocking. It felt realistic.
Praise must go to Jonas Armstrong as well for playing such a, you know, the victim of the abuse, Joe. I think is Joe the character.
I'm not sure, but I'll accept I think you've got more of a chance of getting it right than I.
Who was one of the boys alongside Danny Waldron.
Probably good.
I just think all of his scenes have just been, and he must, you know, they must have spent time talking to abuse victims and things.
Yeah, there would be that hope.
Neil Morrissey as well seems to be the only person who's got away with generally being a bit of a...
Well, again, it was, you know, but again, that whole bit, again, was very clever, you know, that you thought they were going to sort of convince Craig Parkinson, but Craig Parkinson acted, I have to say, I mean, as much as we hate the character, Craig Parkinson was the tour de force of this episode.
All of them are excellent.
Yeah, and there's not a weak link.
I think they need to introduce like a BAFTA for ensemble cast, because I can't see...
That'd be a good idea.
Separating one performance. I mean, in the last two series, you've had that, you know, Lennon James and Keely Hawes have been that character, and everyone else has sort of been
the protagonist, as it were,
around them. But this time, it was mainly about the AC-12 characters. We thought at the beginning it would be about, you know, the Danny Waldron.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's worked as completely.
And like none of those characters were in it past. Like, you know, you thought that Arsha Ali and Leanne Best and those would be around. You know, four characters that they had in the press photos were those four.
And yet none of them made the end of the series.
Certainly the last 2 episodes.
That's right. You know, it will be in my top shows of the year. I'm sure yours as well. So.